Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News, and I'm Faisal Rahman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about a couple of very important topics. The first one is about this sit-in that is going on in various parts of Pakistan, including Islamabad, regarding this blasphemy case about this Asia Bibi. Earlier, she was sent to the jail in 2010, but later on today, the final verdict of the Supreme Court of Pakistan was issued, in which she was acquitted. She was, in fact, released, and the police officers were told to let her go. Now, since everybody was expecting that there is going to be a fallout factor, and the fallout factor would be from the religious groups, but interestingly, other than all the religious party, only one political or religious party, that is Tehreek-e-Labbaik Ya Rasulullah Pakistan, came out. They seized the traffic. They have practically choked most of the major cities of Pakistan, and especially the main roads. When you talk about Islamabad, you talk about Faizabad, you talk about the expressway Islamabad, you talk about the motorway, you talk about Faizabad, you talk about certain other major areas of the twin cities. They have been totally blocked. So later, about half an hour ago, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Imran Khan, addressed the nation, in which he very categorically mentioned that this is something which the court has said, and whatever the decision of the court is according to the constitution, and one has to abide by it. Now, the second important point is that these people seem to be in a different mood, in a different feel altogether, and they're not ready to go back. Now, the Prime Minister has practically appealed to these people that they should go back and should not challenge the writ of the state. Remember, I'm saying writ of the state because we can have multiple issues with the governments, but when it comes to the state's writ is, I think, the most important factor. Whatever way they are using to incite people is something which is not at all acceptable to anyone in Pakistan. And people can't go to their offices, they can't come back from their offices, children can't go to school, they're stuck in their schools. The ambulances are stuck on the road for hours and hours. Is this what Islam is teaching us? Is this what is happening in Pakistan? Unfortunately, this is something which cannot be tolerated, just cannot be considered something wise from them. And when you talk about Tawheen-e-Risalat, now, Zubillah, we all against that. We all love our Prophet like anything, in anything. But when a certain faction from the society will start blaming the non-Muslims for their own vested interests, that is something where we need to come out and make sure that the minorities are taken care of and they are protected. It is not about the political issues that are created out of these, or the political mileage they'll gain, or sort of other support they'll have. Practically, when you're inciting the public for such incidents that you need to come out and do, that is something which is not at all acceptable to anyone. This is not the way the countries are run. This is not the way the governments function. And at the end of the day, if somebody is swearing, and he's not leaving anybody, whether you talk about the Prime Minister or the Chief Justice, Supreme Court of Pakistan, or you talk about the Chief of Army Staff, eventually this has to come to an end. This is not on anymore. We'll talk about that also, plus obviously what sort of on one side we are traveling all over the world to ask those people to come and invest in Pakistan. We're preparing grounds to make sure that there should be no problem for the investors, whether you're talking about the local investors or the international investors. But when they see such incidents happening in Pakistan, where the writ of the state is challenged, where the Prime Minister is abused, where the Chief Justice of Supreme Court is abused, where the Chief of Army Staff is abused, then there are a lot of question marks. We'll be talking about that, what sort of economic impact it has over the country. Forget about the rest, what is going on. I mean, they can practically choke and paralyze the entire system. But this has to stop. This has to stop no matter what. To talk about this, we have with us in our studio on my right is Dr. Abid Hasan Saab, a senior economist, has been a member of WTO also, sir. Thank you very much. World Bank, sir. Thank you very much for taking out your time and being here. We also have with us another known economist, Dr. Waqar Ahmed. He is the Deputy Executive Head of the SDPI. So thank you very much. And we also have with us Zia Bande Saab, again, a man from the financial side, is also a known economist, sir. Thank you very much, Bande Saab. Abid Hasan Saab, first of all, though it's not your topic, but let's have a quick round of what is happening in Pakistan. So unfortunately, the media is not showing what is happening, but some sort of footage which I have received, I mean, they have practically burnt motorcycles and vans, and they've beaten people whether you talk about the families or individuals, not only in Islamabad or on the motorway, all over Pakistan. Now, this is something, sir, which they earlier did. Everybody sort of made sure that this is something which is not acceptable. But unfortunately, sir, when we look at the previous elections, you talk about PTI's number, you talk about PMLN's number, you talk about the votes which PPP received. But number 4, it's not JUI, it's not MQM other, it is the party which is called Tehreek-e-Labbaik Ya Rasul. That has become a political party. Now, they have fielded their candidates everywhere, they have got strength everywhere, sir. I'm not talking about the winning strength to own a seat of MNA or an MPA, but enough to choke certain roads and to create chaos. So, your take.
Look, I mean, this drift, let me backtrack. I think first, I think the Prime Minister has very eloquently defended the decision of the courts, and also very categorically sent a message that you know, the writ of the state will be enforced. So, I think that's a very welcome sign. But this drift has been around for 20, 30 years. And when the rest of the world kept saying to Pakistan that they face some serious internal existential threats, we kept ignoring it, right? So, I mean, this should not come as a surprise to us. And I was just thinking, look, this kind of hateful videos, imagine if this came from the so-called liberal activists, what would happen to them? Or from Balochistan? They'll all be missing by now. So, the state has to take a very tough stance on this. I mean, it's all right to appeal that, look, go back to your homes and this, that. But the hateful video is a clear evidence of something, you know, that's against the law, inciting people within the army. I mean, that's not on. So, I hope that the state does not exhibit double standards in this case, you know, and clearly sort of enforces the same standards on these people that it enforces on, you know, activists, social activists, you know, who've been threatened or who, you know, over the last couple of years. So, all I'm saying is, I think it's terrible for Pakistan. One, the image issue, you know. Second, I mean, our economy is a bit of a tailspin. Absolutely. You know, and these things don't help. So, the Prime Minister is very right in saying that these are enemies of state. You know, these are enemies of Pakistan. I mean, people, I think there's nothing wrong. Our constitution allows people to hold a view and a freedom of speech. And, you know, we should accept that, we should promote that, we should facilitate that. But when it comes to hateful views, there needs to be a line.
And especially, sir, when you're asking the other generals to revolt against the Chief of Army Staff, I mean, don't you think they should fall under the Article 6 and the person should be taken to task?
So. I mean, whatever the law is on hate crime, that should apply.
I think they should. Now, sir, again, talking about this current situation, sir, abusive language, he is known for his abusive language. That's the best part. I mean, you look at his clips, and it's not even funny, to be very honest. Now, this man or certain other religious, I would say the individuals whom we know because of the religion, unfortunately, they're using the religion as a shield. And secondly, sir, not only using religion to sort of incite people against the government and create an anarchy kind of a situation, but also, sir, since we have made them the custodians of the religion, don't you think we deserve this now?
Faisal Sahab, I think this is very unfortunate that all this is happening at a very critical juncture, as Abid Sahab also just highlighted. You know, I was in fact talking to one of the cabinet ministers just a couple of hours back, you know, and he actually informed us that today there were two very important agenda for the Prime Minister, you know, which was dealing with his upcoming visit to China and Malaysia.
Yes.
Where he really wanted
the Foreign Minister of Iran is visiting Pakistan. What sort of message are you giving to him?
That's right. And the cabinet was supposed to brainstorm today regarding the kind of portfolio which would be discussed with the government in China, the government in Malaysia, you know, regarding economic cooperation, of course. And sadly, however, the attention of the government, the entire civil machinery was sort of diverted to a subject which really nobody was expecting earlier in the day today. You know, that's one. I think the other aspect also is that already you have sort of an image overhang at the moment, which is telling people not to lock themselves into longer term investment in Pakistan. In your previous program, we talked about attracting FDI in export oriented sectors. I think this is a key example that no matter how much you sort of improve on your ease of doing business rank, which by the way we have done this year, but if unless, and Abid Saab also said, unless you sort of resolve that image issue, sending that message across to the world very clearly that we wouldn't sort of be open to this kind of liberal expression, rather more than liberal expression of hate, you know, is very important. And this, Faisal Saab, also links with what, if I can say, what Financial Action Task Force has been telling us, you know. I mean, there are elements in our...
do you think this is going to add further to our misery, sir?
I think these are some very well-endowed groups, which in fact groups like FATF have on their radar as well. And these were their sort of very subtle messages that one needs to do something about them. But unless there is a very coherent, succinct strategy to deal with them, it's going to be very difficult, you know. And thirdly, I think in your introduction, you also pointed out the social impact of all this. Now that tomorrow, and I'm just talking about Islamabad, I'm sure this would be the case in other urban centers as well. Now and tomorrow, our children won't be going to school. All schools in Islamabad have been shut for tomorrow. All schools in Pindi are shut for tomorrow.
That has been officially announced, sir?
Yes, it has been announced, sir.
Okay.
And
I'm not aware of it, sir.
Yes, and just recently there was a news on the state television, of course, that there were people bringing patients on the motorway who were actually stopped by these people. And if patients cannot travel to hospitals, you know, and there has been a skirmish.
They've choked the motorway
Yes.
in multiple cities, sir.
Yeah, so I think the social impact is enormous. And the Prime Minister, I think while, yes, he was very articulate in his statement, he needs to put a deadline to this activity. He needs to let them know that I give you 24 hours, I give you 48 hours, after which you have to leave, you know. And there won't be any negotiation. I think that's the kind of message.
I'll also clear one thing here. If you remember when they staged a sit-in about a year ago in Islamabad, again, you know, this particular Faizabad, I mean, this in fact takes the entire, I would say, the brand. Faizabad was choked for about months and months, if you remember. People who used to come from Pindi to Islamabad, normally it would take half an hour, 35, 40 minutes, would end up taking 3 hours to get to work, and then 3 hours at least to get back to work. Now look at the productivity which has gone down. On top of that, forget about the ambulances which were stuck, forget about the students who were suffering, forget about the general public which was in a misery, forget about the people, everyone was you know, pointing fingers toward them, and they were praying to God that please, there should be some way that they should go back. And then you remember, there was this written document. One of the signatories was SN Iqbal Saab, the minister, and one was the sitting two-star general. And then the DG Rangers intervened, and he was showing distributing 1,000 rupees to all these individuals. Now, I'll just give you one example. If I was the DG Rangers, why would I do that in front of the camera, sir? That people should see that I'm giving 1,000 rupees, because most of their tents were burnt by the police. So they had no clothes and no money to go back. This is the reality, because DG Rangers is such a powerful man, and he's got a number of soldiers around him, that if he wants them, or them means that the civilians, so-called, to move back, he can do that. And he can talk to a few people. No, my point is that was also presented by certain television channels in a very negative way. That wasn't the case, sir. To be very honest.
No, but the point is at that time, PTI and opposition was kind of supporting them.
Sir, supporting them because they were gaining. Today, maybe the opposition might end up supporting them. Maybe they will end up financing them also, because if that is serving their purpose. But at the end of the day, so now people are not stupid. People do understand what's going on. And I think religion is for everyone, sir. Religion is not only for the person who has got a longer beard or having a kula or something on the top, or wearing shalwar kameez 6 inches shorter than usual length. That is something which we all need to understand, sir. I think because we hardly talk about it, because we are afraid of them. They're not even 1% of the total population, sir. What if these youngsters of Indian Islamat come out and fix them for once and all? I swear upon God, they will find no place to run. But the unfortunate part is that we let them become and let them bully us and let them bring to the stage where, the Prime Minister is addressing the entire nation that this is what has happened. Court has taken a decision, Bandi Saab, and still Maulvi Saab is saying something else.
Look, things are not that simple. The situation is quite complex. This, as Abid Saab also have told you about this, we are paying a price. This keg powder, basically we have prepared it. And as far as these fault lines are concerned of the religious fanaticism, I tell you very frankly, there are many people who have the beard in their stomach also, if they don't wearing a beard. And you find in every segment of the society.
I totally agree with
So
you.
we have to be very careful while handling it. Okay, most of the the sabotage which have done within the military establishment were the inside jobs. You know that also. So it means that we have people like that inside, the fifth columnist over there. Now, as far as this thing is concerned,
Assassination attempts on Musharraf,
yeah.
attack on GHQ, attack on
in
PNS,
NHQ,
so on and so forth.
naval
Yes, even the Air Force
installations,
one.
yeah, Air Force One, it's an inside job. So it means that they have the tentacles inside. Now those liberals which you were talking about, like Abid Saab, or even these nationalists or secular people, they don't have that sort of a tentacles within the security establishment, the tentacles which these religious people are. Maybe the quantum, or you can say the degree, will be different, but it is a serious issue out there. Now what is important, what I see a silver lining that this decision was taken after 3 years. Okay, so court are taking a courage. It means there are certain signals which are coming up. One thing which you see and one thing which you don't see. The issue is this, that the gap between Pakistan and other countries in the regions economically is increasing. Everybody realizes people travel outside, people go to China also. So you need to understand that what is happening is going to happen. And what I'm happy about today, that government didn't give them the opportunities of playing on optics. They denied them the optics. Now, I totally agree on that.
The message has been sent across.
Yes, that it is important. It's not a human right issue. Okay, the people are there, as you have yourself said, that they are spreading the hate. They are inciting to murder. They are inciting to revolt. How can state can allow?
Inciting to practically commit suicide.
Exactly. How can state can allow that? Okay, but we need to understand that they have to handle it very tactfully. We got people who are going to be on the forefront. Their life could be on danger. You know, when it happened in Italy, when they were going after the mafia, so even identity of the judges were hidden.
Yes.
The witnesses were hidden. Okay, so it means a desperate situation requires desperate solutions. You cannot have a linear journey in this country. So we have to be careful, and I believe that the existing government and the establishment are on one page to handle it. That is a very positive thing which we have to see. Yes, in the interim we will have pain, we will have cars burned, people beaten up, maybe somebody killed also, which is unfortunate. But this is the cost, Faisal, which we have to pay.
One has to pay. The nations do pay this, sir.
For the 2-3 decades we've been doing it. As everybody on this table agree that we have closed our eyes. We're not realizing it. So I think so we should very carefully, whoever it's he doing it, is not the point of eulogizing people. Is the point not to come out openly, okay? Just keep quiet, deny them the optics, suppress them. In clandestine operations, do it. It has been done worldwide. It can be done in Pakistan. And Pakistan's security apparatus is capable of doing it. So I'm not that much, negative about it or pessimistic about it, but I'm happy about it that at least they have realized the gravity of the situation.
But Pandey Saab, tell me something. this is not the first time that this man has come out. And we all understand that he has a good capacity to stay on roads for weeks and for months. When I saw a picture, a 22-wheeler full of batons, I can show you, I wish I could show you that on TV also, arrives in Islamabad. Nobody stopped it because it was practically guarded by all these mullahs. Now my point is, sir, what is happening, sir? Are they preparing, or is there somebody else behind them? Is it a political faction? Is it maybe some external enemy? You never know. You know, sir, there are multiple angles to look at the situation.
Look, financing is one part, okay? What is important, that the fodder is available there. It's not like that some foreigners are coming and doing it. They're local people who genuinely understand what they believe, what they are doing. Okay, it's not something like that somebody has given them the money and they are doing it. This is a brainwashed generation. You need to understand that. And you have to handle it like that. You cannot just wish them away. You have to be sometime ruthless.
Sir, when a brainwashed bacha, 14, 13-year-old from Waziristan, wears a suicidal jacket, carrying 10, 15 odd kgs of explosive, all right, so he has also a mission.
Actually,
but the point is, sir, don't you think it's worth killing him?
You need to segregate
before
it.
he kills
this
innocent people in the
Rizvi,
society.
this Mr. Rizvi, which you are talking about, doesn't belong to that Deobandi side. It's a Brelvi, okay?
It's a Brelvi side, yeah.
There's adjustment between the two. We have to differentiate between the two. The thing which is happening today is being initiated by these people, not by the other people. And you don't have a lot of history of suicide bombing by these guys. You have more suicide bombing from those Wahhabis and Deobandis. So we need to understand.
I'm just giving you an example. If somebody is there to create chaos.
Most of the people are coming, they are coming, from Punjab, South Punjab, or this area, and from Karachi. The people are coming out on the roads. And most of the motorway which has been closed into this area. Now, it means that if we want to understand, I mean to say the security situation, how to handle it, then we have to differentiate. We don't take it as a monolith. All are they different, they have different agendas, they have different methodologies of agitation, and you have to handle them accordingly. What is today, we have to just focus on that today. Other thing, they have been taken care by the army. You know about those North Waziristan and South Waziristan operations. So they have neutralized them to a very large extent, okay? Now this is more dangerous because they are sitting in your main cities, main economic centers. So whatever they do, it harms you more. The previous operation took place on the peripheries. So it means you have to differentiate. Both will have different mode of operations.
Yes. Now, Dr. Saab, schools are closed, universities, colleges are closed, people can't reach the hospitals on time. Plus, on top, shops are closed, so there's no business taking place, no transactions are happening basically. Cities are paralyzed, people who want to go back to their homes can't go, traffic is choked, people are uncertain what is going to happen. Few are saying that they might stay here for months, few say maybe tonight they'll be cleared. A lot of confusion is prevailing at the moment, sir. Now, when you talk about the kind of loss which is incurred during such sit-ins or otherwise, that's huge, sir, isn't it? Other than the losses which are already there, sir, in addition to that.
Look, I mean, a day here or 2 days there, I think it's in
Sir,
a big economy.
If you allow me, I'll just have to take a short break here. We'll take a break here. After the break, we'll return and we'll continue our discussion. Welcome back. Ji, Dr. Saab.
I mean, look, I'm not too worried about the economic impact of a day or two of. I think it's the larger issue that you need to send a clear signal to your own citizens, to foreign investors, that there is a rule of law in Pakistan. I think that's the most important thing. That I mean, many countries have had strikes here, there, and so I'm not too worried. it's a signal that, look, law shall prevail, court orders shall be enforced. And, I mean, it's a very serious offense if you start threatening judges. Look, I mean, you want judges, and as Bandir Sahab was saying, this whole campaign against mafia in Italy about 30 years back, I think, a lot of judges got bumped off.
So the
But
case was in Mexico for that matter.
So I think one hopes that the state does take a very sort of, I would say inflexible. Now, I agree, it has to be handled carefully. I mean, you don't want to use a sledgehammer, but still, the message must be clear that, I mean, this kind of
Enough is enough.
Enough is enough. So, I mean, as I said, I'm not too worried on the economic. Yes, it's a bit of
But,
a inconvenience.
Dr. Saab, it's just a very bad.
Absolutely. Look, we didn't do much about it when they were here a year back. It should have been put a dead end to that, and between that time and this 12 months, there's a lot of hate videos that have come out of these organizations. The state didn't do anything, right?
And he's been constantly challenging.
Constantly challenging the state. So, I mean,
This has to stop. This has to come to an end. As earlier mentioned, that you're setting a very wrong precedent. When you allow such characters to be on roads, then you're giving a free ride to everyone, and you're practically telling the rest of them that this is how you get your sort of whatever you feel, whatever you want. This is the way forward to get it done.
we sorry, I'm taking your time. We give this lip service, every politician for 56 years, that we want to make whatever Jinnah's Pakistan. He would be, turning his grave, look, if he were to know what's happening in Pakistan.
The unfortunate part is that when we talk about the secular Pakistan, secular doesn't mean
Not
that you become
secular, I
westernized,
mean,
the women start wearing bikinis and something of that sort starts happening. But the point is that secular doesn't mean this. This is an extremist approach, and that's what is seen abroad, and that's is something which creates a very, very negative impression.
If I can just add to what you said, Faisal Sahab, my sort of supplementary concern is the capacity in our institutions which are supposed to deal with such situations. Now, for example, hypothetically speaking, Prime Minister gives certain direction to a certain institution to go out and indulge in dialogue with these people. Now, you yourself said that the experience from the past in which Ministry of Interior and Rangers and everyone was talking, we also understand there were 2 or 3 other institutions as well, and all were giving sort of very unfragmented communication, The lack of communication within the institutions was missing, of which these people were actually accruing a lot of benefit. So this is my additional concern, that once we know that such situation in large countries like Pakistan, large populations like Pakistan are recurrent, such situations are recurrent, we should have a response strategy to such situation, And I think this is only half the work done, that Prime Minister has come on the television and said something. If Prime Minister now needs to act, he needs to act through certain institutions, and they need to have that.
And I'm sure they have a plan for that, sir.
And if I can sort of go back to the previous examples, even the Lal Masjid example, for example, these institutions would send the junior most officer to initiate the dialogue process, somebody who is totally alien to such situations, I mean, these situations require so much training, so much mental nerves and a lot of psychological background that an officer needs to have, And just sending junior...
And expertise on top.
Expertise. Just sending junior level interlocutors to go down there to discuss and talk with such people is a bad idea.
So you think that if a contingent of, let's say, politicians and some officers is sent, do you think they can actually fizzle out the situation, things can get back to normal?
Well,
No.
it is anybody's guess, I mean, the kind of measures which they have taken in a usual democracy, somebody would have actually put in a plan to sort of compensation plan, I mean, they've been breaking the property all day, but as Ziasa was saying, that you cannot do this over here because it is this matter has some sort of complication, some sort of sensitivity, that nobody will go home punished.
But one should know what's right and what's wrong, sir. There should be some difference between black and white. We can't always live in the grey area, the lighter grey and the darker grey. Sir?
Actually,
Bande sir?
what I want to say that he has very rightly pointed out the capacity of the institutions. And when you're talking about the capacity, you need to understand this is an ideology which they're working around. That means that you need to have a discourse, a separate discourse, where your people, your officers who are going to handle them, they also believe on that. It's not like that those people with whom they are going to go to talk, they become their proponent coming back. Okay. So what examples we need to take? In Muslim countries, we are facing these problems. You have one mainstream, I mean to say the religious discourse, and one you have these fanatics or on the peripheries. Okay. So what is important? Look at the Indonesian model, how they are handling their extremists. In Malaysia, or for example in Maghreb, where I'm talking about Tunisia, Algeria, or Morocco, even Jordan, even Egypt.
There was a bomb blast in Tunisia the
No,
other day.
I mean to say that I'm not talking cut and paste sort of a thing. We have got different dynamics in our society, but we need to pick up because the source of this disconnect is coming from the same side. It is from the religion. Okay, you are talking your religion is different. I mean to say, I'm not saying religion is different, but your practices and your way of understanding is different because your background is different. One of a kid who is coming like Waziristan, which you are talking about, he has got a totally different. So we need to, this is a war of minds. We need to understand you have to create a very strong discourse which you institutionalize, which is institutionalized. Otherwise, if you are not taking it seriously, you will always create fifth columnists within your agencies. But that's the most dangerous part. As you and everybody, we are talking about that this was Jinnah's, I mean to say Pakistan. I mean to forget about for once Jinnah. It was 1947. A lot of water has crossed. It's not no more, it's demographics, it's, I mean to say the economic stage, everything has become different. It's a very different society, what society we inherit in 1947. Now we are sitting in 2018. Like US is very different what George Washington has done.
Yes.
You cannot do the same thing what he has done at that time when even slavery was even allowed and legal. So it means the society changed. We are sitting in 2018. We need to think about it. We need to think about what way we are going to do. We need to think about what mistakes we have made. These have-nots are the part of the society. And we, I mean to say the government has a very strong, very heavy responsibility because these have-nots can very easily be exploited by these far-right people. And they are doing it. They have done it in Europe. They have done it in Asia. They have done it in Africa. Pakistan is no exception.
Correct.
Okay, so we need to think it in a very clear terms. How to create a discourse, how to train our people to handle them. It's a long-term strategy. I mean to say there's no shortcuts into it.
All right. Now, Dr. Saab, since we always talk about FATF, recently there was this team from the Asia Pacific group, which was in Pakistan. And honestly speaking, sir, the kind of report or whatever their observation wasn't very satisfactory. Rather, they had a lot of issues, a lot of areas where they actually felt that Pakistan could have done more, they have not. They should have done more, they have not. So the point is that when you are in such a situation, I would say dire straits, where everybody is pointing fingers towards you, regarding the terror financing or money laundering for that matter, sir. And every other day you end up seeing a account like which has money around 4-5 billion rupees, and interestingly, the person whose account has no clue about it, and he's a poor vendor or maybe somebody working somewhere. So these are the real concerns. So forget about that amount. But what I'm saying is that when you look at FATF and their approach, and they are not at all satisfied, they're rather dissatisfied, and they believe that a lot more needs to be done. Then they said, well, certain institutions do not have the capacity, some of the individuals do not have the will, maybe a lot of negative and red marking, sir. Don't you think, and on top, icing on the cake is this. Thank God they're not showing much on TV, but this is what is happening, to be very, very honest. So what do you think, all these ambassadors and high commissioners sitting in Islamabad, don't you think they're keeping an eye on that, and they'll be presenting this report in their weekly submission which they send to their own respective countries? What kind of a message is this, sir?
You're absolutely right. Last night I was at a dinner, there were like 3-4 European ambassadors. And of course, each one of them, without any exception, said, we're really monitoring, watching this. And if tomorrow the case went against RCAVB, they said, mark our word, the GSP plus would be withdrawn.
Okay.
Right? Because, like, whatever it is, we
There's
may
going to
not
be a straight
agree or
line. They'll-
disagree.
okay, fine.
With,
No
they
more.
said, look, the GSP plus has 8 human right conditions. And this would be one of the more fundamental ones that Pakistan would have violated had the case gone again. So I'm glad that, I'm not, that this didn't happen. I think this whole FATF has to be looked in the context of what does the rest of the world think about Pakistan? There's a technical issue. FATF comprises bureaucrats from different parts of the world. So there may be some central bankers from Indonesia, some equivalent of FIA guys from Korea, so are more technocrats.
That's how
Right? But there's a global sort of overarching view about Pakistan that it is a soft state, and it has allowed and continues to allow organizations which don't fit into the global view about world, and they have easy source of financing. Right? So that's the overarching view that is held within most of the important FATF countries. Right? So obviously this won't sit in well with them. And I think they'll see they have to kind of watch this very carefully. Let me give you an example. For example, the Pakistan recently, for 30 years we have this thing that you can bring in billions of dollars or trillions of dollars or tens of dollars and you won't be asked any questions, right? So there was a fundamental kind of difference between know your customer, and for 30 years we took this view that, look, remittances are very, very important to our survival, and therefore we shouldn't be asking questions, otherwise they will nosedive.
Yeah.
So last year the government said, okay, we can ask questions of any remittance which is over $100,000, but under $100,000 is still the law, allows people this flexibility, or the FBR or FIA cannot ask them. That's what the law is. Now I know when I used to work in the World Bank 10 years back, and we were talking about anti-money laundering laws, and at that time the international institutions, IMF and the World Bank, was saying, look, like many countries, the threshold should be $30,000 or somewhere. And, so for 10 years, 15 years now, our institutions kept blocking that. We never had you look at the AML law today, it still has a very high threshold. Now, there are issues that when you rely on remittances, you want to be a bit careful. So all I'm saying is that I'm not sure that we'll be able to kind of satisfy this FATF requirements if we are not able to satisfy the global, world at large, that our tolerance for, organizations which spew hate, which are not the norm, is now zero. Mm-hmm. So we have to be able to convince them that there is a zero tolerance in the society among institutions, that we will come down hard if these institutions cannot explain where they got the money from. But right now I don't see that. Where there's a capacity issue, then there's a willingness issue also.
Yes, indeed,
right?
Indeed.
And by the way, my own view is that there is far more money generated within Pakistan for these institutions than money is coming from abroad. Because, as Zia was saying, a lot of people support them. For example, the Lal Masjid people, when there was that thing going on a few years back, the whole of Apara was sending in food stuff for them.
All right.
Right?
All right.
So it wasn't something flown in from Saudi Arabia. So
Indigenous.
there's a lot of indigenous support for this thing.
Yes.
And I'm not sure that how you convince the rest of the world that we are clamping down on this indigenous support.
Dr. Saab, can you take this debate further?
I think, Faisal Sahab, in the little time that you have left in your program, just if we can offer thoughts for future. The last time this happened, NACTA, which is an institution mandated to have a strategy to formulate the way forward, had given certain proposals to our Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister, of course. I think the current cabinet needs to now look into those proposals given by NACTA, and I think those proposals were discussed in the National Security Council as well. There is already the National Action Plan does talk about how to deal with such incidences or such instances in a country's timeline, and one should have standard SOPs. The fact that these recurrent incidents have certain patterns which our institutions can deal with on their own, instead of entire country being locked down and Prime Minister's attention being diverted to sort of such activities. We should give autonomy to our institutions, the relevant institutions, and let them sort of implement their recommendations. And I would, through your program, would strongly recommend to the government to listen to NACTA, to discuss their proposals in the Parliament, and put certain SOPs in place so that whenever similar things happen in future, we should have a very clear course of action. Those people orchestrating these things in future should also know what kind of strong response they are going to get.
Dr. Saab, if you remember, when there was this baton charge on mullahs a few months ago, when they were sitting in Faizabad, less mullahs and more law enforcement agents were injured. And now, the real cause, there were multiple reasons for that. One was the half-hearted attempt of the law enforcement agencies. So as earlier mentioned by Bande Saab, that, at the end of the day, because, we all Muslims and we have a soft corner for certain issues, and we say that these poor guys, they haven't eaten or whatever, have been here for a certain cause, But don't you think that their main man should be picked up? And he should be made an example. And these poor guys, obviously they're blackmailed also, in one way or the emotional blackmail, that's what I call it. Bande Saab, last quick comment on this.
I want to take what Abid Saab was saying. I just want to take forward. As far the state is concerned, now state is giving very mixed signals. They're at times reflecting a very myopic and retrogressive mindset. Like take the example of these INGOs. Look at what harm have they done to this country? You should be more open to the society. Now you're closing down these INGOs. What signals you are giving to these people? We want to make more friends in the Western countries. This FATF, which is very rightly said, technical is only one part. Other part, the goodwill which you want to generate from those people. And the ambassador in this country, they have raised those points also. That, okay, you want to close down, any NGO? Please give us an objective criteria. There is no criteria. Some junior level officers who's equally myopic or maybe mullah in disguise. He's deciding that what this country should have. Now, this government has the duty towards that. Are you the person?
Sometimes you look at the proposed curriculum of the kids, it's funny. Literally, it's funny that who has been eating what while he was.
No, you need to understand that tentacles are very deep. It's not that surface. There are a lot of support which is available, inherent also, or explicit also. So we need to understand that if we want to give some face of Pakistan to the world, what should be the steps we have to take? Like Vakar also has mentioned, it means that we need to understand that we want to make more friends, not less friends. Our thinking is like that if we put all our eggs in China basket, so we are going to be saved. He will be a savior. In real world, things doesn't work like that. You have to have many friends from whom you can choose according to the situation. National security is paramount. And I'm sorry, the people over there, they are compromising our national security. And government should think seriously about it.
And I'm sure they are thinking about it seriously. So this time, because there comes a time when it's now or never. if you won't do it now, because you know you've been feeding this monster for a very long time, the monster of extremism, the monster thinks that he's right, rest everybody's wrong, and you've fed him so much that it is no more a dinosaur, sir. It has become a Armageddon, kind of, or Godzilla, what do you call it? So, well, certain decisions were taken very lightly in certain eras. Unfortunately, now this generation is paying for it. So you have to put your foot down. And the writ of the state, there is no compromise
No
on that, sir.
compromise.
Thank you very much, Bandi Saab. Dr. Saab, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much, Dr. Saab.
Thank you.
And that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you tomorrow at 8. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz from us.
So when are we going to talk about